to be the cook for the men that are going to build a church for the Harmons. And so we paid for our mom to go on a mission trip, thinking, maybe she'll let us go on one eventually. Well, through high school, our church never went on a mission trip. In college, it wasn't happening. My sister was moving to Abilene, Texas to help actually another one of Pastor Matthew's friends, John and Jennifer Sanders, at Trinity with their youth department. And we went and visited them the spring break before the summer. And Jennifer found out she was pregnant and said, Melissa, do you want to go as the other adult on this trip to Hong Kong? And I was like, absolutely, if my sister's okay with it, because she was already going. And so God provided the money. I went on a mission trip to Hong Kong between my junior and senior year of college. And I met 400 Filipino ladies that went to one church and about 8 men. It was the first time I'd really been around the Filipino culture. They were so friendly, and I loved them. But it was really my first experience with the Filipino culture. While we were in Hong Kong, we did an American football camp, and kind of got to see Hong Kong, and we went into China and saw China, and it was just a very good experience for my first time out of the country. That fall, at our missions conference at Westside and Emporia, Corey Lyons, one of the missionaries in the Philippines, came through and shared about his ministry with kids in the Philippines. And he told us that there is an internship program. You can come over and work with them as an intern during the summer for 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever you want to do. And so I went to my sister and I was like, hey, you want to go on this internship with me? Because I think it would be awesome to go to the Philippines. And so over the next year and a half, we started making preparations to go, and we went together as interns to the Philippines. And we got to see almost every aspect of their ministry. We got to see their student center, their men's hoop heaven, their Christian school. We got to go to their youth services, their adult services. We went to a feeding center. We went to their church plants. We helped with a church plant. We helped in their offices with media, web design, and we got this full view of their entire ministry. The one thing we didn't get to do is go to their camp. We came in just about a few days late to go to their camp. At the time, their camp was only ran January through May, and so we missed out on that. But it was a great experience to see this huge ministry have different things that you can do in it. At the time, I was a teacher, and so it was my summer break. I went back to teaching school. Through another series of events, God opened the doors for us to go to Jamaica, and my sister and I went to Jamaica on a missions trip to work with the Harmons. Very dangerous country, very difficult area. We had to be back at their house every night by dark. We did an Awana's Vacation Bible School, and then on the Saturdays, we taught them how to make bread dough, and then bake it, make cinnamon rolls, quick breads, all kinds of breads, and then how you figure out how to sell it as an entrepreneur. And so we did like an entrepreneurship class for them. And one thing that we knew when we came back from Jamaica was we did not want to go back. It was not a safe country. It was not our thing. But it was a great experience for us to learn that. And then I was teaching at the time, and my sister and I met with Greg Lyons that runs the ministry that I work with in the Philippines, and he said, Melissa, have you ever considered being a missionary and working with sports? Because I love sports. And I was like, nope, I have never considered that. I started praying about it, and I did a second internship with Global Surge in the Philippines in 2015. Now, I was very scared to do this. The first 3 weeks of living away from home as a teacher, I cried every day because I was homesick. So that person is now going across the world for 10 weeks on a mission trip without anyone else. 10 days in, my mom fell and broke her hip. And my sister texted me and said, do not come home. I'm going to move back in home with them, and I'll take care of her. And so I stayed, and I learned that I can live on the other side of the world with God's help and without my family. And so the day after I got back to the U.S., I went to my pastor, Ken Armstrong at the time, and I said, I want to go full-time. I need to finish teaching this year, but during this year, I'm going to start raising support, and my goal is to be there within a year, even with teaching. And so I started the process of what's it look like to find a missions organization to send you through, and I started making my own prayer cards. I made my own video. I started calling pastors, going to pastors' meetings, and visiting churches. And about 6 days after school, got out in May, I flew to the Philippines to live there full time. And God has just provided the entire way. Now, what Greg Lyons asked me to do and gave me an idea of what I could do with sports is not what I do. It was a great idea, but it's not what God had planned. And so when I arrived in the Philippines in 2016, we launched a women's basketball ministry. See, they had men's basketball ministry and teenage boys basketball, but that's it. They didn't have anything for women. They didn't have anything for kids. And so I started a women's basketball outreach. Now, in the Philippines, if you play basketball and you're a female, you are a lesbian. A very difficult ministry to work with, knowing that 90% of the ladies coming are not interested in men and are sinning. And so it was a challenging ministry to work with, and God opened the doors for me to reach several young ladies and for them to come to our church. And then about a year and a half later, I was like, why are we not doing anything for kids? Why do we not have kids basketball? Because you can walk outside and see hundreds of people, and you can see tons of kids. Now, I met Pastor Matthew's kids yesterday, and they are 8 and 10, is that right? Are you guys, the two of you? 7 and 10? Okay, Pastor Matthew, would you let them go from your house to here by themselves to play basketball? In the Philippines, those kids would just walk here to play. They would just walk here, or they would get on public transportation and come play. Mom and dad may or may not know where they're going, because that's how involved the parents are. But our church is surrounded by a neighborhood that is less than half a mile away, where kids can just flock to our church. And so we started having kids basketball on Saturday mornings, and it kept growing and growing. And so we're at 2 sessions right now. We have about 20 to 25 kids per session. On our big days, we have around 75 to 100. Those are days that we make it a point to share salvation, a point for them to invite their friends. Excuse me. And those are our big days, and then we try to keep them coming as we go. We have about 25% of them that then attend our church services as well. And so what kids basketball looks like is they come and they learn some skills for basketball, and then we have a 15 to 20 minute Bible study, and then we end with some kind of basketball activity. If you played basketball, you may have heard of knockout. We have shooting knockout. We have a dribbling knockout game. We have hot shot, 3-on-3, 5-on-5. 5-on-5 is their favorite. I don't let them play it very often. I want it to be special to be able to get to play 5-on-5. And so we do those kinds of things to get them into our church facility so that they are introduced to what our church is, they're introduced to the Bible, and they're introduced to people that love them and want to teach them about God. And then about a year later, we opened our second location, and then about a year later, the pandemic happened. And so during the pandemic, I was in the States for about 18 months out of 2 years. Maybe a little bit more than that. I actually came home about 10 days before everything shut down because my mom had fallen and broken her shoulder, and it was now my turn to take care of my mom, not my sister's turn. And so I had called my sending pastor and said, I need to come home for about 5 to 6 weeks, help my mom get recovered from this surgery, and then I'll go back around Easter. Well, the world kind of shut down after that. And I have a permanent visa to the Philippines. I thought that meant I could always go into the country. I was wrong. The pandemic happened, and they said, it doesn't matter what visa you have, permanent or not, you're not allowed in. And that went on for 15 months. They would open it up. By the time you got a flight, they would close the country again. And so 15 months later, I went. Got back in the country. I was there for 3 months. About 6 weeks of that, I was isolated in quarantine in my condo or in a hotel. I was bored out of my mind, doing nothing. My grandma died, and I came back for her funeral, and I said, I'm not going back right now. There is nothing to do there. And so I stayed for a few more months in the U.S., and during that time, Global Surge, the team I work with, asked me if I would take on some extra duties because we did not know when sports would resume. And so I took on some new duties, including working with social media for all of our churches. I helped them utilize social media, not just to tell people about announcements, but how to get people to come to our church, how to utilize the online services to reach more people. The Philippines sends out more people to other countries to work than anyone else in the world. Their biggest export is their people. That means there are people in all countries of the world working. You all know that some countries are restricted where they cannot go to a physical church like this and hear the gospel preached. And so one of the big things for us is we can still be ministering to our Filipinos when they're in other countries that there's not a physical church for them. And so that's one of the things that I've helped our churches understand and helped with their online services and having Bible studies during the week online and in private groups and things like that. And then I also help with our media team, and I have somehow become the IT person within our team as well. That was not something I looked forward to doing, but it happened. I do have a business and computer education degree, so I taught business and computers to high school students. So it does fall within what my education is. And so I do sports still, and I do that stuff on top of it. And we have grown since the pandemic from 2 locations to 8 locations. We just opened our 8th location this month. I don't even have to be there, and locations will open because we have trained our coaches to be able to do that. Right now I have great leaders that are taking care of everything while I'm back in the States. God has provided men and women both to help lead. Most of the women had never played basketball in their lives until they came to kids basketball with their kids or with their brother. They just were like, hey, I need to come because of my kids. Can I help you and learn about this? And they have. Some of the ladies that I have mentored, I just said, I need people to help me. And they're like, well, we're not athletic. I'm like, I don't really care. I need you to be able to open the court for them to play and you to be able to give a Bible study. That's what I need. And God has used them to reach people, has grown them. One of my coaches, she has started a badminton ministry. Badminton is actually popular in Asia. It's not super popular here in America. But she started a badminton. She came to me and she goes, how do you feel about a badminton ministry? I said, are you going to lead it? Because I do not have time to add it to my schedule. And she goes, yes, I will. I'll do everything for it. I just need your permission to go and start it. And I was like, well, I think that you have learned enough working with women's basketball that you can start badminton ministry and you can keep it going. And so she has. And we also have a volleyball ministry. And whenever I have the chance, I also help our church planners in Thailand with basketball and soccer. Usually we go 2 to 3 times a year, April, August, and November. We go over there, we go into schools, we do camps, English camps for them. So we teach them about the Bible through English. We teach them basketball, soccer, and we have a ministry within Global Surge called Honest Deceivers. They use magic tricks. And so we use those things put together, teach them English, and get into the schools and give our church planners ways to meet new people. And then we also host events at some sports facilities that we use for our churches. Almost all of our churches are considered non-facility dependent churches. That means they do not have a facility like this. Only a few of our churches have an actual facility where you can meet anytime during the week. And if we have a facility, that facility is being used from about 6 a.m. to about 10 p.m. every day for either Christian school, Bible college, or an outreach, student centers, sports, those kinds of things. We want to utilize the facilities God has given us, but if God has just given us a facility for churches, we have a church that meets under a bridge. We have churches in Thailand that we've been connected with a guy that owns sports centers, and we just rent the facility during our services, and we have sports camps at them to get to know the people in the area and to reach more people. So that, I know I gave you a lot of information. That's kind of what I do. And I am back in the States through May, raising more support. As I said, we've grown to 8 locations. That takes more money. And so one of my one of my goals while I'm back is to raise more support and to check in with churches that already support me. You guys have been faithful supporters since 2019, I believe, and I want to say thank you for that. You guys have given above and beyond with projects, and that is a huge blessing to me as well. And I know many of you that have been going here since then have met me multiple times, but if you are newer, I'd love to catch up with you at my table. If you haven't signed up for my newsletter, I have a paper back there that you can sign up your name and your email, and I'll send you my newsletter. And then I also have prayer cards and magnets. So if you prefer to hang something on your refrigerator, there's little magnets back there. If you prefer to have the card, there's those back there too. So I'm open for questions now. Okay, yes. Okay, so we have sent Filipino missionaries out from the Philippines to other countries, and we have guys and women that are starting churches in Thailand, and so we help them by having sports camps at their churches there in Thailand. And we can also go into the schools and have what's called an English camp, where we... Yes, yes. There are places that Filipinos can get into that Americans cannot get into as well. Yeah. You have a question? Okay. I fly a ton. I fly about 30 flights a year. Yeah. Yes. It can bring parents into the church. Yes. Some parents that are more involved in their kids' lives will say, we want to know what our kids are doing and we want to come and hear about it as well. We have one of our ladies that one of her goals is that during kids' basketball, she can start a mommy's Bible study, kind of like a small group. Yeah. A percentage of them? I don't know roughly the percentage of them, but I can tell you a story about a young man that came. He came before the pandemic whenever he was still called a kid, and he got saved, and he started coming to our youth services. And during the pandemic, he was coming to our youth services. Once we started kids basketball up, he texted me and said, hey, coach, can I bring my girlfriend's brother to kids basketball? And him and his girlfriend started attending kids basketball, started attending our services. We got him somebody to disciple him, and his girlfriend and him both now are assisting in kids basketball, and they're being discipled, and they're active in a small group, and they're coming to church. So we have seen production from it. I don't have a percentage, though, of that. Yes? I'm not very good at Tagalog. It's hard for me. So I've been told that if you're good at music, it's easier to learn a language. I'm terrible at music. I can't clap on beat, so yeah, that's hard for me. Huh? I just speak in English. And then at our Bible studies, I typically have one of our coaches translate if I'm the one that's teaching. Now, during coaching basketball, I've learned some Tagalog words, and I can throw those in, and the kids laugh and think it's awesome. But I don't have to speak Tagalog too much, and so I thought it was kind of too time-consuming to continue to work on it. Okay, I'm going to have the kids come up here. All kids, come on up. I'll get to your question in just a minute. All the kids, come on up. And if I can have maybe 2 or 3 adults come on up. Volunteers, 2 or 3 adults. Teenagers, come on up. Teenagers, come on up.